Chapter 51, Match. Pang. Zhou Hangxi staggered backward continuously. He finally couldn't stabilize himself from the force and landed on his butt. However, Tang Wuling stood grounded just like before, though his upper body swayed a bit. How could this be? Zhou Hangxi was at a loss. If one could say he'd been defeated during the match that day due to being careless, what about today? He'd released his martial soul and even utilized his soul skill, power amplification, yet Tang Wuling's strength still crushed his. It was simply unrivaled and had even forced him on his butt. Stop. Wu Zhangkong commanded icily and pointed at Zhou Hangxi. You. Out. If a power system battle soul master lost to their opponent in strength during a match, then there was no longer a need to continue the match. Why didn't you use your martial soul? Wu Zhangkong eyed Tang Wuling. Tang Wuling answered. He wanted to compete against me in strength. Wu Zhangkong's expression turned frosty. If he told you to eat shit, would you? Take on every match as if it were a battle. Winning that battle is your sole objective. Even a lion has to give its all to catch a rabbit. You can't allow even the slightest chance for your opponent to defeat you. You advance. Wait for the next match. Losers were kicked out and winners were reprimanded. The stress level of the students multiplied rapidly. Next match. The second pair were Yan Xiao and Shishi, the two whom had stood closest to Tang Wuling and Zhou Hangxi. Yan Xiao, with a bitter face, begged Shishi to be easy with his actions. Please be lenient with me. I'm just a support type soul master. I can't endure much. Shishi commented. To each their own. Start. As soon as Wu Zhangkong announced this, Shishi dodged to the side. A yellow ring of light shone beneath his feet at almost the same time. His speed was unimaginably fast. His light dragon dagger had a bright golden glow coming from it, and it neared Yan Xiao within a short span of time. Right at that moment, a miracle appeared. The white glow flashed from Yan Xiao's body, making the students feel as if there were a flower of light before them. When Shishi ambitiously struck, his dagger met nothing but air. Tang Wuling had fought twice with Shishi and agreed to a third battle. Thus, he was focusing hard on this match. He realized that Yan Xiao had been holding something glimmering when Shishi had rushed towards him. In the blink of an eye, their positions swapped, and Shishi's attack failed. However, Shishi's response was quick. When he realized that his opponent disappeared, he already shifted his light dragon dagger backwards. It appeared that his arm had moved into an unbelievable position as if he were jointless. Light and shadow came together as if to protect his back. Yan Xiao was quick enough to only use his soul skill once, but it was soon shrouded by Shishi's light dragon dagger. In addition, Yan Xiao's soul skill didn't allow for continuous use. Just as Yan Xiao was about to be sliced apart by the light dragon dagger, a huge palm appeared and dragged him to the side. Stop. Shishi turned around with the dagger at his chest. Though his actions were swift, there was no trace of panic. His small, handsome face was full of ice, causing the eyes of the girls in their class to shine. Not bad. You advance. Wu Zhangkong nodded towards Shishi before turning towards Yan Xiao. You activated your soul skill at the precise time. However, you had underestimated the abilities of your opponent. You should have distanced yourself from him after activating your soul skill. When an auxiliary system battle soul master is restrained by an agility system battle soul master, you should find ways to strengthen your chances of survival. Yes. Thank you, teacher. Yan Xiao held a round disc in his hand which seemed to have many intricate lines on its surface. He had listened to Wu Zhangkong's words, but Yan Xiao still thought, how did Tang Wuling manage to give Shishi, whose skills are unrivaled, those swollen cheeks? Facts have proven that the East Sea Academy's teachers had a unique vision when determining how the classes were sorted. After almost every match, the participants would be berated by Wu Zhangkong. Of the 20 students, 8 of them were tool soul masters and were not equipped with any battle skills. Their capacity for assisting abilities were hopeless as well. Of all the battle soul masters in class, 3 of them were close to the level of the trash martial soul, blue silver grass. Within these matches, there were even 2 tool soul masters with no battle skills at all. They were merely pushing at each other within the duration of the match. Although Wu Zhangkong had guessed that the caliber of the class as a whole was bad, he hadn't expected that it would be to this extent. If not for the free compulsory education, it would have been meaningless for the students within this class to continue their training. Reaching the rank 20 would be next to impossible. From the current situation, only Shishi had caught Wu Zhangkong's eye within the mass of students. Second round starts. You and you. Both of you shall compete. Wu Zhangkong, with a severe-looking expression, pointed at Tang Wuling and a female student. The female student whom Wu Zhangkong pointed to was petite. She looked cute with her short light blue hair and big eyes. A glance at her direction reminded Tang Wuling of Naya. He faintly remembered that Li Shushui was her name and that her martial soul was a cat. Start. Li Shushui gave off an impression of shyness. She bowed towards Tang Wuling before releasing her martial soul. Half of her light blue hair turned white, and one of her blue eyes turned green. A white soul ring rose beneath her feet, and a cute little white cat appeared on her shoulder. White fur grew over her palms, and claws sprang out from her fingertips. She crouched slightly and sprang agilely towards Tang Wuling's direction. Her actions were lithe and her speed was fast. It was her speed that had won her the previous match. Like Shishi, she was an agility system battle soul master. Keeping in mind Wu Zhangkong's remark about his previous match, Tang Wuling brought out his martial soul as well. Blades of blue silver grass appeared from his palms, and a little grass snake appeared, twirling around his wrist. After continuously using his soul skill, bind, continuously these past few days, he was exceptionally familiar with it. He released his vine like blue silver grass, but the blades didn't flow towards his opponent. Instead, they appeared around him. They weaved into a big, asymmetrical web that stood near his body. If Li Shushui were to continue at her original speed towards Tang Wuling, she would have knocked into and been trapped by this web. She seemed intimidated and halted abruptly, then got to the ground on all fours without a sound. Shifting her body to the side, it seemed as if she were about to attack Tang Wuling from his side. Tang Wuling had tasted what it was like with Shishi when they were up close. He was clear that when being near an agility system battle soul master, with his own speed, he had practically no defense against such an attack so closely. Therefore, he quickly turned his blue silver grass towards Li Shushui's direction and continued to maintain his web of defense, waiting for the opponent to collide with his web. Li Shushui changed positions continuously as she tried to find gaps. Tang Wuling's gaze was nailed to her without hesitation as he waited for her move. Though his opponent's martial soul was released at the same time as his opponent had been moving at high speed, so he could just wait and consume less energy than her. With his insufficient knowledge of controlling blue silver grass, it was best to stay in one place when dealing with the immense movements of his opponent. While his opponent constantly changed directions, Tang Wuling continued to adjust his blue silver grass web, fixing the blades so they looked more orderly, finding and mending any gaps or holes that may appear. The blades of the blue silver grass gave off a sparkling luster. As Tang Wuling checked his web, he found thin golden lines at the roots of the blue silver grass in his palm. They were just barely visible. Chapter 52, Victory Streak. Li Shushui was, nonetheless, only a 9-year-old child, and her fighting experience wasn't abundant. As Tang Wuling had expected, the continuously quick and ever-changing movements that Li Shushui used to seek her opponent's weak points had eventually tired out her rank 11 spirit power. She couldn't wait any longer. She didn't have the strength to sustain her soul skill for much longer. Li Shushui gritted her teeth and seemed to have suddenly vanished as she maneuvered herself behind Tang Wuling with a sudden spurt of speed. At the same time, the white soul ring on her body lit up. With a wave of her claws, 2 blades emitting white light shot in front of her, followed by her body. Tang Wuling obviously wasn't as fast as her. However, his action of merely changing direction was much simpler. His blue silver grass moved quicker and congealed together. The 2 white blades slashed quickly at the blue silver grass, a so-called trash martial soul. However, the envisioned image of blue silver grass being torn to bits didn't happen. The white blades flickered gently with light as they both disappeared, and Li Shushui crashed into the web of blue silver grass. Long blades of blue, narrow vines twirled upwards and bound her petite body. Tang Wuling pulled his right hand into a fist and punched toward Li Shushui's bound figure before him. However, he abruptly stopped his fist a mere few centimeters in front of her. Shishi unknowingly felt his cheeks warm up as he watched. This jerk. Why didn't he stop when he was competing with me? There was a flash of light in Wu Zhangkong's eyes. That's no ordinary blue silver grass. His character is free from arrogance and his control is pretty good too. Tang Wuling wins. Tang Wuling loosened his blue silver grass and helped Li Shushui steady herself. Li Shushui blushed as she exchanged glances with Tang Wuling's large eyes that were in close proximity to her. She said to him shyly, "Thank you." Tang Wuling simply smiled in response, stunning her. She felt as though his smile radiated like the sun. Round 2 proceeded onward and Shishi successfully defeated his opponent. There were 5 remaining students after that round concluded. Tang Wuling originally thought that he would be placed against Shishi in his second round, but Wu Zhangkong purposely placed him away from Shishi. The same happened during his third round. Tang Wuling, Tao Yufan, both of you can start first, Wu Zhangkong said, monotonously. Tao Yufan wasn't tall, but he looked quite sturdy. He had a head of messy, short, brown hair. air. Both stood ground facing each other as they released their martial souls. Tao Yufan's martial soul was a willow tree. His soul power rose, and as he raised both his hands as if to support the sky, strips of willow twigs flowed out and up from both his limbs. They swayed as though they were a part of the willow tree. At first glance, it seemed similar to Tang Wuling's blue silver grass. Blades of blue silver grass reappeared. Control type versus control type. What would happen? This was what Wu Zhangkong was waiting for. In the match before them, Tao Yufan seemed to be abiding with the rules. With their current strength levels and under normal circumstances, a control system battle soul master would have been advantageous in the match since none of them had a powerful soul skill. Out of the whole class, Shishi was the only one with a 100-year spirit soul, while the rest only had 10-year spirit souls. Therefore, Tao Yufan's soul ring was also a white one. What was more interesting was that he shared the same soul skill as Tang Wulin, Bind. His spirit soul was of the snake family as well, but Tao Yufan's spirit soul was a little green snake. His green snake looked significantly stronger than Tang Wulin's gold light, both in mass and vigor. Start. Willow branches and blue silver grass struck at the other at almost the same time. It looked as if the quantity of the willow's branches held a visible advantage. Tang Wulin's blue silver grass only sprouted out from his right palm and there was none from his left hand. Both had almost the same amount of control, but everyone had guessed the results by sheer comparison of quantity. Of course, the willow branches flew in the direction of the blades of blue silver grass as they intertwined in the air. Tao Yufan, having the advantage of numbers, directed the remaining branches towards Tang Wulin in an attempt to bind him. Tao Yufan's gaze revealed a hint of excitement. Though his martial soul wasn't very strong, he felt that his willow branches were stronger than blue silver grass, and the current situation only served to back up his thoughts. Trees would be stronger than grass, wouldn't they? Tang Wulin wasn't frantic at all when the willow's branches arrived in front of him. Faced with its branches, he abruptly pulled on the blue silver grass in his right hand, twisting their two martial souls together and transmitted his physical strength through their intertwined martial souls. Tao Yufan only felt a sudden wave of strength coming towards him before his body was pulled in Tang Wulin's direction. At this very moment, his willow branches had been strongly bound by Tang Wulin. Tao Yufan's response was pretty quick. As his body was yanked into the air, he was still able to raise both his knees. You wanted to pull me over, right? I'll come by and knock you out. However, he caught view of Tang Wulin's expressionless face, followed by a sudden movement of his arms as he shattered all the willow branches that had bound him. He caught Tao Yufan's lower thigh with a quick raise of his hand and pressed him against the ground. The tender willow branches swung profusely in an attempt to bind or push away Tang Wulin. However, struggling was useless against the strength of their opponent. Neither of them had a powerful martial soul, and it was only through his absolute strength that Tang Wulin was able to achieve victory in the third round. You truly are worthy of being called a rice bucket. It seems all that food didn't go to waste. Tao Yufan threw his comments ferociously towards Tang Wulin before escaping out of the circle. Wu Zhangkong frowned. This was not the battle he'd been expecting. Without much doubt, Shishi had won another round. There was only one student who hadn't competed at all. As the matches progressed, only 3 competitors remained. The only student who hadn't competed was a female student. This was a chubby girl who looked a little dumb. All of the students' gazes were directed towards Wu Zhangkong. There were 3 remaining students, so how would the competition proceed? Wu Zhangkong drew a slight breath and decided, Tang Wulin, Hanlan, both of you may compete first. The winner will compete against Shishi. Shishi's face revealed a glint of triumph and he looked towards Tang Wulin with arrogance. He was trying to show that the teacher's opinion of him was higher. However, he didn't realize that through his arrogance, he forgot that he was continuously competing against an opponent with the trash martial soul, blue silver grass. However, Tang Wulin didn't even bother to look towards Shishi's direction as he returned to the competition grounds. Although Hanlan had only experienced 2 rounds of matches, she had left Tang Wulin with a deep impression. It wasn't only for her size, but also for her martial soul. Hanlan's martial soul was the earth element, a fine martial soul. Her soul power was at rank 13, and one wouldn't have considered placing her in class 5 by the look of her capabilities. Start. The 4th round of match started with Wu Zhangkong's command. Chapter 53, Hammering Through the Stone Prison. As he watched Hanlan, Tang Wulin's expression grew serene. Having observed Hanlan's previous 2 battles, he had already come up with a plan for her. A white ring twinkled beneath Hanlan's feet before a spirit soul that looked like a lump of dirt appeared. She didn't hesitate at all as she held up both her palms in Tang Wulin's direction. In response, a yellow ring of earth appeared under Tang Wulin's feet. Stone pillars arose from the yellow ring in a flash, and trapping Tang Wulin inside a stone prison. If it had been Shishi in this situation, he would have likely rushed out of the stone prison's range as soon as Hanlan had raised her hands. However, Tang Wulin clearly didn't possess such speed, so he hadn't bothered moving at all. At the peak, the stone pillars curved inwards, completely sealing off all avenues of escape. Hanlan had won her previous 2 matches by controlling the earth in order to contain her opponents. Although her first soul skill was only a 10-year one, it was unusually powerful as it was able to directly restrain her opponents. However, it was still a 10-year soul skill and its restrictions were not small. For example, after using this soul skill, there was a cooldown period of 20 seconds before she could use it again. If this were a true battlefield, she would have likely only had one chance to use this skill. Wu Zhangkong began counting down the seconds that Tang Wulin was trapped. If he reached 10 seconds, then it would count as Tang Wulin's loss. Hanlan had won her first match with the same method. In the second match, however, she won even sooner. Her opponent had tried to rush out of the stone prison's range as soon as the match started, but the creation of the stone prison was simply too fast. Just as he had approached the outer range of the stone prison, he'd been directly sent soaring by the top of a stone pillar. If Wu Zhangkong hadn't caught him, he might have been crippled by the fall. Tang Wulin didn't want to challenge the prison at the risk of being thrown to such a height, so he decided to remain stationary and let it entrap him. 10. Wu Zhangkong began to expressionlessly count down the seconds. After the first match had ended, Wu Zhangkong had said that being trapped by a control system battle soulmaster for more than 10 seconds was no different than death. Thus, he gave them a 10-second time limit. If he was able to break out of Hanlan's trap within 10 seconds, then it would count as Hanlan's loss. If he wasn't able to break out, then Hanlan would win. It was just this simple and rough. Tang Wulin wasn't the least bit anxious as he unhurriedly raised his arms. 2 grey lights flashed, then a pair of forging hammers appeared in his hands. 9. Bang. He swung the 1,000 refined tungsten hammers in his hands and brazenly smashed the 2 stone pillars in front of him. Dust flew out as the stone pillars were smashed to pieces. The count of 8 didn't even leave Wu Zhangkong's lips as Tang Wulin lifted his hammers out from the rubble. The whole class simply stared at him and they couldn't help but suck in a breath of air. Even Shishi, whom had battled with Tang Wulin before, didn't expect Tang Wulin to use such a method to break out of the stone prison. The eyes of Wu Zhangkong shone as he revealed an unusual expression. He nodded. Tang Wulin is the victor. With his eyesight, he had been able to clearly examine the 2 hammers in Tang Wulin's hands. The hammers hadn't been reinforced by any soul power at all, thus indicating that they weren't soul tools. Even if they had been soul tools, what level of efficacy could Tang Wulin even reach with his current soul power? This brat's strength is truly prodigal. Shishi's eyes widened in shock. This guy was actually holding back when he fought me. In reality, Tang Wulin hadn't held back at all. He simply hadn't thought of using his forging hammers to do battle before. He had only taken out his 1,000 refined tungsten hammers today due to his need for destructive power. He hadn't thought that a single attack of his would have such remarkable results. Wu Zhangkong turned towards Shishi. Shishi, it's your turn. Shishi leapt onto the stage. He was feeling a bit gloomy at the moment as he recalled the amount of food that Tang Wulin had eaten this morning. If he'd known earlier that he would face him in class today, then he wouldn't have bothered to treat Tang Wulin to a meal. Hammers in hand, Tang Wulin changed his stance to face Shishi. He wasn't confident in his victory at all. Although he had won the last time, it was simply due to a miracle. But now, with these hammers in hand, he suddenly felt wonderful. It seems that these 1,000 refined tungsten hammers had already integrated with his body. When he held them, his confidence surged. Right as Shishi was mulling over his thoughts of how to deal with Tang Wulin, a cold voice suddenly cut him from the side. The 4th round, second match, Shishi versus Wu Zhangkong. What? Shishi nearly lost his voice as he cried out in alarm. He turned to look at the icily arrogant Prince Charming. Wu Zhangkong coldly glanced at him. Did you really think that an unfair situation would occur in my class? You will receive one of my attacks. Then you will face Tang Wulin. Shishi stared at him, dumbstruck. Teacher Wu, are you playing a joke on me? You're a teacher. Wu Zhangkong had already strolled over to Tang Wulin's side. With a simple wave of his hand, Tang Wulin was carried over to the sidelines. Hammer still in hand. Wu Zhangkong patted his waist with his right hand, undoing his belt. Teacher, what are you doing? Shishi vigilantly retreated 2 steps back. However, he soon discovered that Wu Zhangkong's pants were very form-fitting. Even after untying his belt, his pants hadn't budged at all. Wu Zhangkong shook his wrist, causing the belt to become completely taut and perfectly straight. With an indifferent voice, he said, I won't release my martial soul. You only need to. Receive one of my attacks. As he spoke, Wu Zhangkong took a step forward with his left foot as his belt sword had already thrust towards Xixi. Xixi's combat experience could be considered the richest amongst his classmates. The moment he released his martial soul, he retreated like lightning. What a joke. Was Wu Zhangkong powerless only because he didn't release his martial soul? With the support of just his soul power, there was no difference between his belt and a sharp sword. Running away was Xixi's best option at that moment. Xishi was extremely confident in his speed. As he retreated, he held his light dragon dagger in front of himself protectively. However, a horrifying scene happened before his eyes. Although he was rapidly retreating, Wu Zhangkong's belt sword stayed in front of him from beginning to end. This attack seemed to be a simple thrust, but no matter what Xishi did, he was unable to dodge it. Bang. Aiu. The belt softened just a moment before it pierced into Shishi's shoulder. However, it simply smacked Shishi's shoulder and sent him flying. After rolling over the floor twice, Shishi was finally able to get up. He clutched his shoulder and grimaced in pain. Shishi's forehead dripped with sweat. The most terrifying thing was that in the moment before Wu Zhangkong struck him, Shishi actually felt as if his life were about to end. This kind of powerful and oppressive strength would cause anyone's spirit to tense up. After he was sent flying, Shishi was able to loosen up a bit, but he was still left with this appearance. Too scary. In the end, how deep is Teacher Wu's strength? You have 1 minute to rest. After that, the finals will begin. Wu Zhangkong shook his wrist once again, wrapping the belt around his waist before walking off to the side. Chapter 54, treating him like metal. After seeing that one strike from Wu Zhangkong, the students dared not break the silence out of fear. Their lineup was even more orderly now. In front of this teacher of theirs, they all felt as if they were under great pressure. Tang Wuling blinked a few times. Just a moment ago he had been seriously watching the match. When Wu Zhangkong's sword thrust forth, Shishi had begun to dodge, yet his futile attempts only resembled a prey caught in a spider's web to Tang Wuling. No matter how much Shishi struggled, it would have been impossible to escape from this large web. It was done with such a simple sword, but had neither the aid of a martial soul or a soul skill. Yet, Wu Zhangkong easily suppressed Shishi. What kind of cultivation was needed for this? Teacher truly is too formidable. Tang Wuling began to revere the so-titled icily arrogant Prince Charming in his heart. Even as he revered Wu Zhangkong on the inside, he also stealthily returned the soul camera to his heavy silver rings. Senior sister Liu Yushin had requested a favor from him. Even though it was his first time doing such a thing, he was still prepared. Shishi wiped away his sweat as he stood there with a pensive look. He was pondering over the oppression he'd just faced from Wu Zhangkong moments ago. Wu Zhangkong hadn't attacked blindly with his sword. In front of this kind of pressure, Shishi had felt as if he were trapped. He felt that he was about even with Tang Wuling, but when he was in front of Wu Zhangkong's sword, he felt as if any decision he made would only result in his death. There was no chance of escape at all. In this kind of situation, even if he had wanted to rush out, how was he supposed to do so? 1 minute has passed. Get ready. Shishi raised his head and rested his gaze upon Tang Wuling who had his hammers in hand. In return, Tang Wuling stared at him as well. Looking back, this was their third battle. Shishi had lost in the previous 2 battles, and now held a slight fear towards Tang Wuling. He still clearly remembered that golden light. This time, however, he would be on guard against it. Begin. Wu Zhangkong announced the start of the match, thus raising the curtains for the final showdown within Class 5. Shishi released his martial soul and his light dragon dagger twinkled in his hand. However, he didn't impatiently rush towards Tang Wuling and, instead, began circling around him. Tang Wuling had also released his blue silver grass the moment the match begun and had weaved blue silver grass in a manner similar to the style of his first match against Li Shushui. The blades of grass weaved into a large net, just waiting for someone to walk into its trap. Shishi's heart stirred. Wasn't Wu Zhangkong's sword pressure simply a formless net? Was teacher giving me guidance on how to break through Tang Wuling's net? But teacher, you don't know how tough this guy's blue silver grass is. It's basically impossible to break through. The very first time they had fought, Shishi had underestimated the resilience of Tang Wuling's blue silver grass. This mistake had allowed Tang Wuling to send him flying. This guy isn't even using his fists anymore, but hammers. If he smashed my face with those. When Shishi saw the 2 shiny black hammers in Tang Wuling's hands, he immediately got a bad feeling. Tang Wuling was neither in a hurry nor impatient to start. He just calmly waited for Shishi to attack while constantly moving the net in his direction. In reality, Tang Wuling knew in his heart that Shishi and Li Shushui were as different as black and white. With Shishi's soul power level, the one whose stamina would be depleted first would likely be Tang Wuling. Even faced with such circumstances, Tang Wuling wasn't anxious at all. He just waited for Shishi to attack so that his golden scales could appear again. Shishi continued circling around Tang Wuling thrice before pouncing forward like lightning. Tang Wuling's blue silver grass spread out in a flash, sealing off Shishi's attack route. He waved his light dragon dagger, its tip striking towards Tang Wuling. Pooh. The blade tip descended on the blue silver grass, and, in a flash, a ring of light dissipated, causing the blue silver grass to undulate with blue ripples. Although the interwoven blue silver grass had easily dispelled the attack, Tang Wuling's soul power had also dropped a bit. Wu Zhangkong's eyebrows raised in surprise. Shishi's attack was meant to let their teacher see that Tang Wuling's blue silver grass wasn't ordinary at all. After committing to an attack with no results, Shishi rapidly retreated, once again distancing himself from Tang Wuling. Tang Wuling didn't control his blue silver grass to chase after Shishi since his movements were simply too fast. Moreover, Shishi's dodging ability was astonishing. If Tang Wuling showed an opening, Shishi would be in front of him in a flash. Shishi was extraordinarily patient this time as he continuously circled Tang Wuling, searching for an opening. With soul power at rank 18, he had more than enough time. Occasionally, he would attack Tang Wuling, but immediately draw back afterwards. Shishi gradually began to reveal a smile. This was because he'd realized that Tang Wuling's soul power was only at rank 11. Although his blue silver grass was marvelous, the gap between their soul power was simply tremendous. As long as Shishi exhausted Tang Wuling's soul power, it would be his win. What else could possibly stop him? The match between the two was taking longer than all of the previous matches. However, Wu Zhangkong wasn't anxious at all. His arms were folded in front of him as he silently watched the match go on. Tang Wuling's soul power was finally approaching the point of exhaustion, which left him with no choice but to withdraw his blue silver grass. During the split second he'd begun withdrawing his blue silver grass, Shishi's body flickered. Immediately, he appeared at Tang Wuling's side with his light dragon dagger in hand. In the face of Shishi's speed, it was practically impossible for Tang Wuling to dodge. However, ding. A brittle note echoed out and sparks flew everywhere. Tang Wuling and Shishi's weapons were interlocked in a showdown. Shishi's light dragon dagger had missed Tang Wuling's body. Tang Wuling's eyes narrowed. It was as if he had entered some sort of special state. The 1,000 refined tungsten hammer in his right hand was held behind him, obstructing Shishi's attack. In disbelief, Shishi spun to the other side, slashing out once again. Dang. The same thing happened as before. Tang Wuling's other hammer accurately blocked Shishi's second attack. How could this be? How could he be so quick? Shishi's eyes were full of disbelief. Could it be? This guy was disguising himself as a pig to eat a tiger. I've actually lost to him twice when he was acting as a pig. Yes. How fast? While he faced off against Shishi, Tang Wuling was continuously thinking of ways he could counter Shishi's speed. His opponent was an agility system battle soul master, while he could be considered both a control system battle soul master and a power system battle soul master. He would lose out to his opponent's speed either way. If this continued on, he would definitely lose. He also couldn't rely on his golden scales to appear miraculously. While he had been pondering over this dilemma, he finally had a brilliant idea. His body's speed couldn't possibly compare with his opponent. However, there was still one area that he was exceptionally fast in. That was forging. In the 3 years he had spent forging, he had grown so familiar with hammers that they were like an extension of his body, especially when his strength exploded out. That familiar sensation was even more intense. If he used the heavy 1,000 refined heavy silver hammers, he wouldn't be able to dominate with speed. However, with his lighter 1,000 refined tungsten hammers, he would be able to make these hammers fly. It would be like the test he took at the Blacksmiths Association. He would dazzle Shishi with his ability of wielding his tungsten hammers. He would treat Shishi like a lump of metal. Chapter 55. Shouldn't there be rewards? That was right. This was precisely what Tang Wuling did. In Tang Wuling's mind, Shishi was no longer a person, but a piece of metal that he was currently forging. His mind gradually entered the forging phase where one emptied out their thoughts and cleared their mind. Shishi's previously dizzying actions seemingly slowed down and became clearer. It was in this situation that the pair of 1,000 refined tungsten hammers were waved around, hammering twice each time to shield off Shishi's attacks. Though Shishi hadn't started his third move, he felt a gush of vile wind blowing in his direction. Tang Wuling struck his hammer towards Shishi. From the ear-splitting sound it produced upon moving through the air, one could easily judge the heaviness of a single strike. Shishi hastily dodged. However, Tang Wuling unfolded his hammers and started hammering down. His strikes, worthy of being called a ferocious thunderstorm, were aimed towards Shishi. The hammers produced a woo-woo sound as they struck down, causing dust to rise from the ground. The repeated strikes left Shishi cowering in retreat. Shishi didn't dare use his light dragon dagger against Tang Wuling's attacks. He was an agility system battle soul master. He knew that even though his opponent was just using pure power, he wasn't confident he could muster the strength to match it. If one compared both their strengths, the difference was simply too great. With a flash of his body, Shishi quickly retreated and distanced himself from Tang Wuling. Tang Wuling didn't give chase. He knew that his speed was of no match to Shishi's. Involuntarily, he halted his hammering, but his gaze remained glued to Shishi in his every action. This bastard. Shishi cursed in his heart. His gaze sharpened. Shishi's expression turned solemn as he caught his breath. The light dragon dagger in his right hand waved slightly. At the same time, he raised his left hand. His entire person suddenly became more vigorous and powerful. He pressed lightly against the ground with the tips of his toes and pushed out, shooting into the air. As he shot up into the air quickly, faint after images of himself trailed behind him. He unleashed a speed that had increased by at least 30% more than before. Pelted by the wind Shishi produced, Tang Wuling raised both his hammers. With his body in the air, Shishi gave Tang Wuling's 1,000 refined tungsten hammers a light tap using the light dragon dagger in his right hand. As he turned, Shishi's energy was recharged. Simply by borrowing some from Tang Wuling in that little move, he was able to direct his left hand towards Tang Wuling. Pooh. Tang Wuling's back was marred with yet another scar. The stabbing pain brought Tang Wuling back to his senses, and he staggered a little, feeling the burning pain in his back. Despite that burning pain, a wave of heat flowed into his body from his spine. Tang Wuling's shock was eradicated by his joy. Are the golden scales appearing? So it was true that the golden scales will only appear under the circumstances of being attacked. However, when he tried stabilizing himself again, the sudden heat wave he felt a moment ago disappeared. It didn't rise through his body like it did during his previous experience, when it transformed into a huge volume of strength, along with the appearance of golden scales. Stop. Wu Zhangkong suddenly appeared between the both of them and halted the match. Shishi wins. Shishi sighed in relief, a strand of glee appearing in his eyes. He finally won. He had finally won for the first time and tears were flowing down his cheeks, but Shishi was curious as to why Tang Wuling's golden scales didn't appear. Could it be that he was still concealing them from others? Or that he was speaking the truth and didn't know how to control those golden scales? Wu Zhangkong spoke to Shishi. You will be in charge of getting Tang Wuling a new uniform set. Hey, didn't I win the match? Shouldn't I be rewarded? Shishi felt his surroundings darken with despair. How is this Tang Wuling guy always finding ways to cost me money? How? Wu Zhangkong turned and faced the class. He spoke coolly. The competition has ended and all of you have witnessed it. What are your feelings? Rotten wood cannot be carved. This icily arrogant Prince Charming answered his own question. It is no wonder why all of you have been sorted into Class 5. You are all a bunch of trash. However, even if you are all merely scrap iron, I will take pride in tempering all of you. As all of you would have seen from the previous match, what is Tang Wuling's martial soul? It is the widely recognized trash martial soul, blue silver brass. However, Tang Wuling has successfully made it all the way to the finals, and even almost won the final match. I was the winner, right? Shishi grieved silently. Why did it sound as if he lost the match? Wu Zhangkong ignored him and continued. He relied not only on his martial soul, but his body strength as well. Some say that physical power is useful in your current stage, but would be useless when everyone has upgraded their ranks and accumulated many soul skills. However, let me mention this. You are in no position to even think about accumulating many soul skills. You should first ask yourself, how many of you are able to reach the stage where you are able to possess a second soul skill? How many more can possess a greater number of soul skills? As you are in charge of your body, would you not think that having a strong physique is useful? Soul power is no longer the only criteria used to assess an individual's potential in becoming a Mecha Master. Possessing a powerful enough energy storage soul tool would allow ordinary people to become a Mecha Master as well. However, a strong physique is the foundation of all Mecha Masters. Without a good body, you will not be able to withstand the strong impacts that exist within a mecha, never mind a high-intensity combat. Therefore, those with a weak martial soul should start your physical fitness training with me tomorrow. Physical training in the morning, then theory and knowledge class in the afternoon. This morning's class will end here. With regards to the competition earlier this morning, I want all of you to think about it. I will be teaching meditation for this afternoon's theory and knowledge class. Class dismissed. This speech was one of the longest speeches the icily arrogant Prince Charming had given during his capacity as their teacher, yet it didn't feel like a lecture. Rather, it was a mere statement of facts. Regardless of whether he was calling them trash or announcing the initiation of special training, his tone remained confident. Shishi, Tang Wuling, follow me. Shortly after he finished that last sentence, Wu Zhangkong headed for the academic building. Is he giving me a reward? A flash of jubilance appeared in Shishi's eyes. Prior to his arrival to the school, he had heard of rewards being given out after matches within school grounds. These rewards weren't too bad. He was, after all, the champion of Class 5. What would the reward be for a teacher as powerful as Wu Zhangkong? He started to imagine it. Wu Zhangkong brought both students into his office. This office of his was pathetic in size, a mere 10 square meters. The room was bare except for a desk, a cupboard, and a chair. The trash I referred to in my speech included both of you as well. The icily arrogant Prince Charming's first sentence killed all the good feeling within Shishi's heart. Shouldn't there be rewards? If not, just a little encouragement. Wu Zhangkong looked towards Tang Wuling. Your performance in the matches was fine. However, you didn't give your all in the matches. That must be a variant blue silver brass. Its tenacity looked extraordinary, but your soul power seemed weak and couldn't last for a long period of time. In this situation, you won't stand a chance if your opponent's soul power is higher than yours. What's with your hammers? Tang Wuling spoke with reluctance. I've learnt forging before. Chapter 56. Does your face still hurt? Wu Zhangkong raised an eyebrow. Forging? You're a soul master, but you learned how to forge. The clumsy bird flies early into the forest. You're a clumsy bird, yet you actually wasted your time on such a pointless thing. Tang Wuling lowered his head and said, but everyone told me that my martial soul is trash, and my spirit soul isn't that good either. Wu Zhangkong interrupted. So you decided to become a blacksmith? What a farce. Remember this, you are my student. Unless I deem you to be useless, you must put all of your efforts into developing as a soul master. Off to the side, Shishi's mouth unexpectedly began to twitch. Didn't you just say I was useless? At this moment, he could sympathize with Tang Wuling. Of course, he was only able to do so because he had won. Oh. Tang Wuling agreed. However, there was no way he would actually give up forging. He couldn't possibly renounce forging after all he had achieved. As for his martial soul, he only felt defeated when he cultivated. Wu Zhangkong turned and looked at Shishi. What are you laughing for? You think you're better than him? Is it really that fun to hide your twin martial souls? You have rank 18 soul power and are gifted with twin martial souls. Just because you were born with a high level of soul power, you think you can be proud of yourself? Shishi raised his head, staring at Wu Zhangkong in astonishment. How does he know all this? Wu Zhangkong coldly said, you've still got a long ways to go. Even twin soul holders can be rubbish people. As an agility system battle soul master, what glory is there in being forced to use your twin souls by a soul master with blue silver brass? Shishi's face turned red with embarrassment. Speechless. Teacher, what are twin martial souls? Tang Wuling curiously asked. Wu Zhangkong's eyebrows wrinkled into a frown. How incompetent was your elementary academy teacher? They didn't even teach you about twin martial souls. Twin martial souls means that you have two martial souls. The benefit of having two martial souls is obvious. People born with twin martial souls usually have innate rank 10 soul power. It's much easier for them to cultivate and they are able to acquire more soul rings in the future. It's just that in this age of spirit souls, they are restricted by their spiritual power, which means their advantage isn't that big anymore. There isn't anyone who possesses the spiritual power necessary to sustain 18 soul rings worth of spirit souls. Perhaps it would be possible if one possessed a spiritual type martial soul like the Spirit Pagoda's founder, but each spirit soul would need to be extremely powerful in order to bestow a total of 18 soul rings. Tang Wuling looked towards Shishi. They were both people, but why was life so unfair? He had a trash martial soul, yet Shishi had twin martial souls. The disparity was simply enormous. Wu Zhangkong suddenly asked Tang Wuling, do you think his martial soul is good? Tang Wuling stared back at him. Was there really a need to say it out loud? Wu Zhangkong lips curled. It isn't necessarily better than yours. His martial soul is a dagger, and his second martial soul should also be a dagger. But it's just a concealed dagger, that's all. The attack range of a dagger is very short. In this modern era of mecha conflicts, what do you think of it now? An agility system battle soul master gains the most restrictions when they become a mecha master. Shishi's eyes widened in shock as he started at Wu Zhangkong. Could it be that Tang Wulin is actually his long-lost son? Why else would he belittle me in order to boost Tang Wulin's confidence? This is simply too biased. However, Wu Zhangkong didn't even spare him a glance. All right then. Down to business. Shishi's spirits were roused. Is he finally giving out rewards? Every new academic year, the academy has a grand tournament. There's one for both the intermediate division and the advanced division. Our intermediate division has a total of 6 grades, and all of them will be participating. This tournament is known as the class promotion tournament. Class promotion tournament. Tang Wulin's eyes were full of doubt. Wu Zhangkong continued. The weakest class starts first and each class picks the students that participates. Class 5 will challenge class 4, and so on. If the challenger is victorious, then the class numbers will be switched. In other words, if we beat class 4, we won't be the lowest ranked class 5 anymore, but the first grade's class 4. The class rankings depend on the victor of the challenge. If challengers are victorious, they can continue to challenge higher ranked classes until they lose. For all 6 grades, the most victorious will become their grade's class 1. If they then proceed to challenge the next grade and win, they will be rewarded. Shishi said, our class is the first challenger. For all 6 grades, there were 5 classes and class 5 was always the worst. In other words, they were currently in the worst class of them all. Correct. Wu Zhangkong nodded. This can be considered a battle of glory for the classes, and if the challengers are able to skip grades, the rewards will be very generous. Shishi proudly said, that's no problem, Teacher Wu. Just leave it to me. I'll fight them all and go all the way to challenge the 6th grade. Wu Zhangkong coldly snorted. The minimum number of participants is a pair. Do you actually think that having twin martial souls makes you peerless? Do you know what kind of people are selected to represent class 1? There is no lack of geniuses in this world. Although many geniuses lose their way, within the intermediate division, your gifts can only be considered average. Shishi had zoned out and hadn't heard Wu Zhangkong's last few words. He only paid attention to Wu Zhangkong's first sentence and turned to Tang Wulin in shock. Teacher, you're saying that I'll be competing in the tournament with him? Wu Zhangkong leaned back in his chair, suddenly exuding an air of magnanimity. If you have any better options, then go ahead. Shishi wanted to say I don't want to be with him, but after recalling the horrible display of abilities by his other classmates, he wasn't able to speak. No matter what was said, this guy in front of him had already beaten him twice. Moreover, he also had the power of those mysterious golden scales. Wu Zhangkong said, the tournament should begin in a month. Thus, from tomorrow onwards, outside of regular classes, I will have you two undergo special training every night. I'll formulate a simple schedule for you two, so you better turn our class into the first grade's class 1. Tang Wulin couldn't help but ask, what if we are unable to do that? Hee. Wu Zhangkong laughed. He was originally very handsome, but when he laughed, Tang Wulin and Shishi couldn't keep their eyes off of him and could only stare blankly. Moreover, while they were stunned, the two of them felt a coldness rise up from their tailbones, penetrating them deeply. After leaving Wu Zhangkong's office, Tang Wulin's brows gradually relaxed. A smile even appeared on his face. Although it was because the other students hadn't put in enough effort, he'd still been chosen to represent their class in this tournament. This would be considered an honor for a soul master. Has he finally taken his first step into the world of soul masters? Apart from Teacher Mang Tian, Teacher Wu had also said he held promise. Hey. Shishi coldly called out to him. Tang Wulin turned around to face him. What is it? I'll fight you again once we get back. I'll also pay you back for the food. Shishi stared at him blankly for a moment. Doesn't this guy really love money? How surprising. I don't want to talk about that. I wanted to tell you to not drag me down during the tournament in a month. Shishi proudly said. Tang Wulin gently sighed. Does your face still hurt? Chapter 57. Muse eyes depression. Tang Wulin gently sighed. Does your face still hurt? The arrogant expression present on Shishi's face hardened in response as he clenched his fists tight. Tang Wulin patted his shoulder. I have something to do tonight. How about tomorrow night? I'll spar with you then. After having been through a few matches against Shishi, Tang Wulin was no longer against battling. During these few matches, he had progressed and greatly improved his combat abilities. The stress that Shishi exerted onto him didn't go unrecognized. As the morning class ended earlier than usual, Tang Wulin didn't return to his dorm. Instead, he went off to the advanced academy. When the bell rang to signify the end of class, Tang Wulin spotted Lu Yushin walking out of the classroom together with a few female students. Senior sister Yushin, Tang Wulin waved in her direction. Lu Yushin spotted him easily and, together with her group of classmates, walked quickly in his direction. Wow, Yushin, I didn't realize you had a soft spot for cute little boys. This little brother of yours is so handsome. He'll grow up into a nice-looking hunk. A girl with red phoenix eyes from the advanced academy said as she gave Lu Yushin a dubious smile. Lu Yushin snapped back. Stop speaking nonsense. This is Tang Wulin, our junior from the intermediate academy's first grade. Wulin, what's the matter? Tang Wulin took out the soul camera he brought with him. Senior sister, I took some photos for you, but I don't feel good about this. Please take back the camera. Lu Yushin blushed slightly and rolled her eyes at him. All right. So be it. Thanks for your help. I'll treat you to a meal. Tang Wulin shook his head immediately. There's no need for that. I can have my meal back at the intermediate academy. He obviously had some self-awareness. There was no such thing as a free lunch from the third window. A free meal would, at least, come from the second window. With his enormous appetite, he was afraid to eat Lu Yushin into bankruptcy. That would be very awkward. Looking at Tang Wulin's retreating figure, the phoenix-eyed girl asked with complete doubt. Yushin, what did you get him to take photographs of? Lu Yushin answered with an air of mystery. Wulin is in Teacher Wu Zhangkong's class. Wow. The icily arrogant Prince Charming. Let's look at the pictures. As the camera was switched on, the tiny screen displayed Wu Zhangkong's figure. There were a series of continuous shots taken of Wu Zhangkong unlatching his belt, then removing it. The few female students widened their eyes, then their cheeks flushed. They were nearly drooling. A meal from the first window. Yushin, please sell me these photos for that. These are exclusives. I will never allow anyone to view these images of my Prince Charming, not of him removing his belt. 2 meals. That's only reasonable. Tang Wulin didn't know about the intense competition his photographs had roused between the few seniors. After finishing his lunch, he continued with the afternoon class. The meditation method that Wu Zhangkong taught was obviously much more complicated than the meditation method that was taught at the elementary academy. However, the results had proven to be far better. Legends have it that this method originated from the continent's legendary Shrek Academy and was a simplified version of their great meditation technique. Under the pressured stare of Wu Zhangkong, the students' learning speed increased. They were able to grasp the basics of how to revolve their soul power within one afternoon. After class, Tang Wulin was the first to enter the dining hall and fill his stomach with dinner before speeding out. He had an important task tonight. Currently, he was on his way towards the Blacksmiths Association to collect his blacksmith's badge. He would also collect some tasks from the association. Savings were of the utmost importance to him, especially when he was saving it for a 100-year martial soul which cost 1,000,000 Federation coins. If he was wealthy enough in the future, he would like to buy himself a meal from the first window. Tang Wulin felt distinct differences in his body when he'd eaten a meal from the first window that morning. If he could afford to have it daily, how nice would that be? Excitedly, he walked out of the academy's main gates. As he moved a bit away from the gates, a black soul cast sped in Tang Wulin's direction. Shocked, he froze on the spot immediately. Out of the way. A crisp voice came from behind. Tang Wulin turned his head to find a long, golden-haired teenage girl staring back at him. Involuntarily, he stepped aside. The teenage girl moved past him and, at that moment, a chauffeur stepped out from the car and opened the door for her. Shortly after the teenage girl boarded the car, the chauffeur closed the door gently before returning to the driver's seat and driving off. Only dust was left in the wake of the car. Another child from a wealthy family. To say that he was not envious was a lie. However, Tang Wulin wasn't completely jealous. He believed that wealthy people were once poor and worked very hard to get where they were now. He believed that if others could do it, he could too. With a smile on his face, he took long strides towards the Blacksmiths Association. Muse was in a bad mood recently. It should have been her most glorious day 2 days ago. However, it was ruined by a sudden change in circumstances. Just as she completed her forging and refining and had passed all the assessments, thus gaining herself the title of second-ranked blacksmith, she was informed that during her assessment, a 9-year-old kid succeeded in the second-ranked blacksmith's test. 9 years old? Was that even possible? This was simply unbelievable. Since the time not long after she was born, her favorite pastime had been to observe her father as he forged. Her father had mentioned that this rough and weight-laden process of forging was not suitable for girls, but was for men. However, the stubbornness in her kicked in and she stood by her choice to become a blacksmith. She started training at the mere age of 5 and started crafting small hammers. Her father thought that it was a joke at first. However, after seeing her persistence for 2 years and mimicking his every action, it finally moved the heart of the East City's Blacksmiths Association president, Mu Chen. Mu Zai inherited her father's martial soul. That alone made it suitable for her to become a blacksmith. In addition, she was willing to put in the extra effort. Mu Chen couldn't help but search for some rare herbs in order to try maintaining his daughter's figure. While she was training to gain the adequate strength to become a blacksmith, her figure had taken the toll and turned stockier in the process. Mu Zai's passion for forging came from the bottom of her heart. She was officially a first-rank blacksmith at the age of 11. Her progression grew at an exhilarating speed under Mu Chen's tutelage. Not long after her 13th birthday, she took the rank promotion test and passed immediately. She had remembered clearly that her father mentioned that she had progressed faster than others her age, that she was worthy of being called a child prodigy in the world of blacksmithing. However, how could she share this title of second-rank blacksmith with a 9-year-old boy? Second-rank blacksmith? He'd also been held in high esteem by the surveyor. In fact, although the surveyor didn't mention it, her gaze alone revealed her feelings. In her eyes, the boy was obviously stronger than her. Mu Zai heard that this boy would be at the Blacksmiths Association sometime today in order to collect his badge. She was keen to see who this boy was. Did he have 3 heads and 6 arms? Chapter 58, Birthing Life. Tang Wuling looked up to see the large hammer on the sign, before taking large strides into the Blacksmiths Association. Although he had only been here once before, he was already fond of this place. After arriving in East Sea City, this was the only place that felt familiar to him. This was also the place that gave him confidence. Yan Chaoling stood behind the front desk and saw Tang Wuling as soon as he entered. In reality, she had been ordered by her superiors to specially wait for Tang Wuling. Tang Wuling, you finally arrived. Yan Chaoling briskly walked to Tang Wuling's side with a smile and inquisitive eyes. How could she possibly not be curious towards this guy? At the age of 9, he became a second-rank blacksmith. How did he accomplish this feat? Reportedly, he had already broken the headquarters record. The record for the youngest first-rank blacksmith in the Blacksmiths Association was held by their current president with a record of 8 years old. However, the president had become a second-rank blacksmith at 11 years old. The president was slower than Tang Wuling by 2 years. The association highly valued this child and had ordered the employees to immediately bring him up the tower as soon as he arrived. Hello, big sister Xiaoling. Tang Wuling's memory was exceptional, and he clearly remembered the name of this big sister. Yan Chaoling smiled. You really are formidable. I heard you passed the second-rank blacksmith test. As Yan Chaoling spoke, she bent down and looked straight into Tang Wuling's 2 beautiful eyes. Tang Wuling's face grew red in embarrassment. No way. I was just lucky. Yan Chaoling giggled. You're so young yet you're so modest. Come on now, I'll bring you up. Thank you, big sister. After getting onto the Seoul elevator, Tang Wuling was shocked to see Yan Chaoling pressing the button for the highest floor. Big sister Xiaoling, where are we going? Yan Chaoling smiled. We're going to go get your rank badge. The elevator ascended quickly and when it reached the top floor, Tang Wuling's ears hadn't managed to adjust yet. However, he simply shook his head a few times and was able to recover. Tang Wuling was greeted by a wide view of the horizon the moment he stepped out of the elevator. The walls were all made of glass, and at this height, he was able to see nearly half of East Sea City. A great number of skyscrapers littered the city, just like a steel forest. On the other side was a great number of plant cover, bringing vitality to the city. Yan Chaoling found a staff member. I'll have to trouble you to inform the president that Tang Wuling is here. Wuling, wait here for a moment. Yan Chaoling brought him to a sofa and sat him down. Not too long after, a crowd of footsteps approached. Mu Chen was at the forefront. Mu Chen had arrived very early that day but hadn't even stepped foot into his workshop yet, all for the sake of waiting for the boy who was able to bring him such a great surprise. Ken Yue was also in his office and was following right behind him. If the others in the Blacksmiths Association knew that these 2 figures had waited a whole day for a child, they wouldn't even know what to think. Right behind these 2 figures was precisely Mu Zai, president. Yan Chaoling stood up and greeted Mu Chen respectfully. Mu Chen smiled and nodded. The next moment, his gaze fell on Tang Wuling. When Tang Wuling heard Yan Chaoling call him the president, he had stood up and looked at Ken Yue. Ken Yue walked over to his side and said with a smile, Wuling, this is the president of the Blacksmiths Association, Mu Chen. He is also the most famous Saint Craftsman ranked blacksmith in the continent. Saint Craftsman? Tang Wuling's eyes began to sparkle. Mang Tian had mentioned Saint Craftsman to him before. Only 7th and 8th rank blacksmiths could earn the title of a Saint Craftsman. He had never expected to meet one so fast. This president didn't even look much older than his own teacher. He truly was formidable. Is that a Saint Craftsman's badge he's wearing on his stomach? 8 stars. An 8-star Saint Craftsman. Hello, president. Tang Wuling hastily stepped forward and bowed. It's you. An astonished voice came from Mu Zai, who was at Mu Chen's side. To Mu Zai, this was the guy who had stolen all of the limelight from her. In fact, this was the guy who stole the limelight from all the blacksmiths of his generation. Tang Wuling was slightly stunned as he saw Mu Zai. What is this rich girl doing here? Mu Chen looked at his daughter in surprise. Zai, are you acquainted with each other? Mu Zai looked at Tang Wuling and said, we're not acquainted, but it seems we attend the same academy. Mu Chen smiled. Tang Wuling, what grade are you in at East Sea Academy? Tang Wuling said, I entered the academy as a new student this year. I'm in the 1st grade, class 5. When she heard the 2 words class 5, Mu Zai's expression immediately revealed a trace of disdain. Naturally, she knew what class 5 represented. It was a class full of good-for-nothings who could never become a Seoul Grandmaster. However, Mu Chen's attitude didn't change when he heard what class Tang Wuling was in. I heard from Ken Yue that you passed the second rank test. That's truly a wonderful achievement. You should know that you've set a new record in the Blacksmiths Association. We truly feel that you are worthy of being our successor. Tang Wuling's small face grew red in embarrassment. He had no clue as to how he should respond when faced with praise from others. He took a moment to think before saying, Uncle President, can I get a badge now and begin taking forging tasks? Mu Chen laughed. Of course you can. Ken Yue smiled. The president waited for you the whole day in order to personally give you your badge. Yan Chaoling had already walked over from the side, carrying a silver tray with a red cloth on top, and on top of the cloth was a badge. The badge was in the shape of a hexagon, with a blue background, a protruding hammer and 2 white stars embedded into it. Regardless of whether it was a mecha craftsman, a blacksmith, or even a technician, their rank badges all looked about the same. 1st and 2nd rank badges all had blue backgrounds and white stars. It was only at the 3rd rank that there would be change. Mu Chen personally placed the badge on Tang Wuling's right breast. His smile vanished and he turned solemn. From henceforth, you are a member of the Blacksmiths Association. As a blacksmith, I hope that you will earnestly complete all your forging work. Use your soul to perceive, and your life to gain enlightenment. A true blacksmith doesn't just forge metal, rather, they will birth life to it. Birthing life? These 2 words were simple, but they could rouse even the apathetic. Combined with his understanding of 1,000 refinements, Tang Wuling felt as if a great door had opened by a small crack for him. Tang Wuling gently touched his badge and the simple coldness, causing an unprecedented sense of accomplishment to ignite within him. At last, he had officially become a blacksmith. I want to compete with you. Mu Zai suddenly interrupted from Mu Chen's side. A face that was unconvinced looked at Tang Wuling. It was only now that Tang Wuling noticed that on her stomach, there was an identical badge. Chapter 59, Accepting Tasks. Seeing that Mu Zai was eyeing him with a pair of provoking eyes, Tang Wuling was at a loss for a moment before deciding to reject her offer. I'm not competing. He turned next towards Mu Chen. Uncle President, when may I go to accept tasks from the association? Mu Chen shot a glance at Mu Zai which prevented her from speaking her mind before smiling back at Tang Wuling. Brother Ken will bring you there. You are now part of our association's large family after having passed the test successfully. If you meet with any difficulties in future, you can apply for assistance from the association. Though our Blacksmiths Association is not the strongest association around, it surely is the most united one. As he spoke of the word united, he gave his daughter a pointed look. Mu Zai, with a discontented expression, lowered her head and pouted. Follow me then, Ken Ken Yue said with a smile. After Mu Zai sent Tang Wulin and Ken Yue off with her eyes, she could no longer wait before bursting out with a question towards her father. Dad, why did you prevent me from having a match with him? Mu Chen's face darkened. Such a presumptuous attitude. What do you take this place for? This is the Blacksmiths Association. As a member of the association, especially as my daughter, your every word and action represents the association. This child has just joined our association. What if you scared him off? You should compete with him when both of you are familiar with one another. Until then, if you are still keen on competing with him, I won't stop you. But you should hold such a contest privately. Isn't he your junior? You should keep your eyes peeled and watch for him especially. Mu Chen didn't get a chance to speak with Tang Wulin too much today. With regards to this child, he needed more chances to observe Tang Wulin. He had seen the block of heavy silver Tang Wulin had refined, and judging from its degree of uniformity, he knew well that Tang Wulin's forging standards was above his daughter's. His true motive was that he didn't want his daughter to suffer any blows to her confidence. After all, self-confidence was of the utmost importance, especially for kids at their age. Since Tang Wulin was keen on accepting tasks, he would have ample opportunities observing him. The planning for how he should cultivate Tang Wulin could be done after observing him a little more, which wasn't too late. The task acceptance hall was located on the second floor of the Blacksmiths Association, with the whole of the second floor filled with round counters. Each of these counters had task rank sign that looked similar to the badges of the association. A blacksmith could only collect tasks within their rank or ones of lower ranks. They were unable to collect tasks that required rank higher than theirs. Within this blacksmithing trade, materials were all provided by the entrusters. Because of this, the association would try their absolute best in order to maintain the quality of the end product prior to collection. This was to avoid the association from needing to compensate. Little boy, you've brought me many surprises. That fellow Mang Tian, he's... As he thought about Mang Tian's taunts towards him that day, Ken Yue was fueled with anger. However, he really had cultivated an outstanding disciple. What type of task would you like to pick? Ken Yue asked Tang Wulin. Tang Wulin said, anything that is within my capabilities would be good. Ken Yue said, our association rents out forging workshops too. Are you thinking of forging within the association? Tang Wulin shook his head. Teacher is letting me use his East Sea City's forging workshop. I'll complete my tasks over there. Thank you though. A flash of disappointment streaked through Ken Yue's eyes. All right, but I do want to remind you that all tasks from the association must be completed and you cannot fail them. Once you fail, you must compensate for the ruined materials. That counter in the center, facing the front, is where you collect your tasks. The left counter is where you report and place completed products, while the right is where you are allowed to purchase all kinds of metals. Our association has, ideally, every kind of rare metal that exists in the market. However, due to an individual's blacksmithing rank, the quantity they can purchase each month varies differently. If you need to, you can get your metals there. Then there's the fourth floor and fifth floor. That's where the forged products are sold. You can go have a look up there as there's a lot to look at. Yes, Tang Wulin said respectfully. Right now, he didn't have any intention to purchase metals or forged products as he didn't have any need to. Another reason was that he didn't have the money. He was actually hoping to earn coins through forging, enough to purchase a 100-year soul spirit. Ken Yue brought Tang Wulin to the front of the 2-star counter. Behind the counter was a staff member and in front of the counter were 10 soul screens. One could collect a task with a mere swipe of the screens. The staff present would answer on any questions one might have. Following Ken Yue's directions, Tang Wulin touched one of the soul screens. A list of available tasks popped up. At the front was a summary of the task, followed by the quantity and payments. The association will take 10% of the payment while the rest will go to you. After listening to Ken Yue's words, Tang Wulin's gaze sharpened. Task 1. Refine the rare sky dragon iron. Requirements, 100 refined. Time, 30 days. Quantity, 10. Payment, a unit price of 2,000 Federation coins. So, one would earn a total of 20,000 Federation coins when they successfully refined 10 pieces of sky dragon iron. To Tang Wulin, this was definitely a large sum. After having completed the 1,000 refinements on a piece of heavy silver, it had given him the confidence to successfully refine a huge amount of rare metals. It seemed to him that a blacksmithing was a very lucrative career. Without much thought, he picked the first task and a dialog box popped up, requesting information about the delivery location. Shortly after he completed that, the screen requested his blacksmith's badge. Tang Wulin plucked off his badge and placed it down. Congratulations, second rank blacksmith Tang Wulin. You have successfully accepted the second rank forging task of refining sky dragon iron. The materials will be sent to your indicated location within 3 days. His badge bounced up. Is that it? Tang Wulin raised his head towards Ken Yue. Ken Yue nodded. Isn't it simple? However, I have to remind you as this is your first task, you have to be very careful. Though the stated payment is quite a hefty sum, many blacksmiths don't have a high pay as they were unable to complete every task flawlessly. If there's a flaw in the product, the blacksmith would have to dig into his own pocket for the amount required to purchase the new materials, which is usually a big sum. Yes, Master Ken. I will be very careful. Tang Wulin's chest tightened as he noted Ken Yue's advice quickly. Do you have a communicator number? Ken Yue asked. Tang Wulin shook his head and blushed. How would he have the sufficient money to purchase a soul communicator? Ken Yue broke into a grin. Then here's 2 items for you. Chapter 60, Surrounded. Ken Yue smiled and said, soul communicators are gifted to new members of the association. Since every blacksmith has one, you can consider it one of the benefits of joining the association. As for this ring, the president wanted me to give it to you. He said that it's just a temporary loan. It has a space of 10 cubic meters, so it'll be convenient for when you hand in your work. How else could you carry around all the metal required for the tasks? There are even benefits. This storage ring is simply too valuable. Tang Wulin couldn't even comprehend the worth of a ring with 10 cubic meters of storage space. Ken Yue placed the 2 items into Tang Wulin's hands. Take it. It'll be fine so long as you complete some tasks from the association. Just consider this ring as something that the association issued you. It's usually only given to 4th rank blacksmiths, but the president believes that you'll definitely become a 4th rank blacksmith in the future. Don't disappoint us. Tang Wulin took a step back and kneeled before Ken Yue. I must thank you, Grandmaster Ken Yue, and the president. Ken Yue helped him up, then rubbed his head with a smile. Even though I'm not your teacher, it's still my duty to remind you that every single profession is but a different route to the same destination. Even though soul power is no longer crucial to this profession during this era, and many ordinary people are now able to forge things that previously required the power of a soul master to finish, some accomplishments within the cultivation of soul power is needed to reach the peak of this profession. Because of this, you definitely can't abandon your studies. Yes. Tang Wulin earnestly nodded his head. His dream, after all, was to become a powerful soul master. Despite being more accomplished as a blacksmith at this moment, he'd never wanted to give up on being a soul master. It wasn't until he left the Blacksmiths Association that Tang Wulin snapped out his dream-like state. He owned a soul communicator now. Moreover, the association would reimburse him for the calling fees. He even had Ken Yue's number within the soul communicator already. He looked at the storage ring on his right ring finger. This ring had a storage space of 10 cubic meters. Its value was simply unimaginable. It was likely worth even more than a 100-year spirit soul. However, Tang Wulin was unaware that even though this was a benefit given by the association, it still wasn't something a 4th rank blacksmith could receive. Rather, one had to be a 5th rank master craftsman rank blacksmith to receive it. Mu Chen had clearly given him this ring as his investment into a talented child. The association's benefits are truly too great. Tang Wulin suddenly remembered something he had to do. He wasn't just a blacksmith, he also a soul master. He needed to go register at the Soul Masters Association. With his current rank, he would receive an allowance of 1,000 federal coins each month. After asking around a bit, he discovered that the Soul Masters Association wasn't too far away. Since it wasn't too late yet, he might as well drop by. The Soul Masters Association was about the same size as the Blacksmiths Association. As a one-ring soul master, Tang Wulin was only able to enter the first floor of the Soul Masters Association. After showing his soul ring, he was able to register and was given 1,000 federal coins. His experience at the Soul Masters Association was different from the one in the Blacksmiths Association. In this place, no one would pay attention to a brat with a 10-year spirit soul. However, Tang Wulin was still very happy with his gains today. When he returned to his dorm room, he found that Yan Xiao, Zhou Tangxi and Shishi were all already meditating. He quietly climbed onto his own bed and began meditating according to what Wu Zhangkong had taught them today. Teacher Wu had said that he would begin training Tang Wulin and Shishi the next day. Tang Wulin couldn't help but wonder what kind of methods he would use. He began revolving his soul power in an even more complicated pattern. Soon after, Tang Wulin entered a meditative state. His weak soul power began circulating its way to his meridians, converging bit by bit. Early morning. As Tang Wuling finished meditating, he was astonished to discover that she had already disappeared and that the sun had already risen. This was the first time he had tried this new meditation method, and he'd woken up much later than before. He immediately got off his bed and ran to wash his face and rinse his mouth. For Tang Wuling, mealtime was the most important time of the day. Tang Wuling joyfully ran towards the dormitory's doors. However, before he even neared the door, he saw a group of upper grade students looking all over the place, as if they were searching for something. When he neared them, he suddenly discovered that there was a familiar figure in this group of students. Muzai was dressed in the school uniform, her long, golden hair done up in a ponytail. Girls matured early, and she was already half a head taller than Tang Wuling. She had a charming figure, tall and thin. Although she hadn't finished maturing yet, she still had a bit of the scent of a young woman. Just as Tang Wuling saw her, Muzai had also coincidentally turned her head, looking straight at him. It's him. She suddenly raised her finger and pointed towards Tang Wuling. Before Tang Wuling could even react, Muzai, along with 7 or 8 upper grade male students, surrounded him. What do you guys want? Tang Wuling asked, confused. There's a matter I have with you. Come with me, boy. A tall, but average-looking male student said to Tang Wuling with an uptone. Tang Wuling asked, what matter? Just tell me it here. He had a faint understanding of the situation in his heart. These advanced division students were here to look for trouble. This was definitely related to Muzai. There were quite a number of newly admitted first-grade students here. However, they were all scared off by the fierce expressions of the upper-grade students. You think you have a choice? The upper-grade male student who'd previously spoken reached out a hand, grabbing Tang Wuling's shoulder. Tang Wuling fiercely shook his grip off of his shoulder. His strength was far greater than that upper-grade student had expected, causing him to stumble and nearly fall. Without any hesitation or wishful thinking, Tang Wuling immediately attacked. A strand of blue silver grass shot out of his palm. In a flash, the surrounding upper-grade students were bound. He also directly knocked down the one that had been previously staggered. During the time he had been at the elementary academy, regardless of whether it had been for himself or Naya, he had never backed down from a fight. Even if he was outnumbered, he would fight back. If he didn't fight, then he wouldn't have any chances at all. This was an academy after all, and he would be fine as long as he broke out of the encirclement. Clearly, these upper-grade students hadn't expected this action. Even with so many people on their side, Tang Wuling had dared to attack. Moreover, he had been very decisive and had been able to bind them all with his blue silver grass in a flash. Right as the male student in front began gathering his soul power, Tang Wuling collided with him. Bang! The upper-grade male student was sent flying. It looked as if Tang Wuling was going to break out of their encirclement. Right at that moment, a figure quietly appeared in front of him along with a glaringly bright light. In the wake of this blazing light, Tang Wuling felt as if his whole body was about to ignite. His speed suddenly decreased. He only heard a cold snort before he felt a pain in his stomach and was kicked back into the encirclement. Thanks so much for watching this video. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Also leave a comment down below with suggestions on what novels to read.